Welcome back to lesson 3.5. Today is a refactor, so hopefully you've watched lessons 1, 2, and 3. Otherwise, you might be a little bit lost, and I'm going to dive right in. I'll recap at the end what we learned because I found something quite interesting. I'm curious if you come to the same conclusion as me or not. We will see. Today, though, it is higher order components and currying day. I hope you like doing those things because we're going to be doing a lot of it in JavaScript. Yeah! You should be familiar now with the format. We have items on the left and item on the right, but in the last 3 lessons, we've continued to make the item on the right match the item on the left. Today, in our refactor, at the end of our lesson, it should look the exact same. We're not going to break anything. We're hoping to just make our code a little bit more manageable. And let me just briefly explain what I mean by that. We've got a couple of really long chains happening here, and we have patterns starting to emerge, and even a verbiage. So for this one, for example, we're going through each element and we're applying some styles. That's going to be one of the first ones that we refactor. Just a reusable way to pass in some styles and then pass in some nodes later and have that stamp out the styles on them. We've got this one here, which grabs the direct descendant. So our selector here is class name direct descendant of H2. So anything that is of type H2 that is direct descendant of this class here. So we're going to grab the direct descendants, we're going to filter based on the node name, and then we're going to set the style. This is something consistent we kept seeing, which was flat map and filter. We would get direct descendants and filter by something. Look we're going to see it right here. We're going to flat map, and then we're going to filter based on node name. In this one, we're going to go grab first and last, make a little payload, and then set some styles. I'm not sure we're going to refactor this. I think since it's only appearing once, we'll just leave it. And we have a last child selector, which again, we flat map, we filter again by next element sibling, which is interesting, and then we apply our styles. So those are what we're going to refactor. We're going to refactor setting style, first and last child, filtering based on a node attribute, and flat mapping the direct descendants. Let's get started. The way I'm going to do this first is I'm just going to set up some new files and some new folders, because if we look over here in our project directory, which you might not be able to see because my annoying avatar is there, we've just got a CSS directory. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to make a new folder. I'm going to call it JavaScript. And in the JavaScript folder, I'm going to make a new file. I'm going to call it utils.js. And then I'm going to make another new file. And this one I'm going to name as experiment.js, which will be nice. So we'll have some utility file or some utility functions. We'll have our experiment JavaScript file where we're doing our experiments, and we'll have our control CSS where we have our controlled CSS, and our HTML who's just kind of caught in the middle of this storm. And here's our utils folder. Okay, we got our index. So one of the first things, let's just take everything that we did in the index.js file and move it to experiments and import that over here. So we're going to say import from our local directory, JavaScript, and our experiment file. And I'll just save all of that. So that's still just, we have a single index entry. That entry is going to import some items, and this is going to be eventually importing some things from the utils. Let's just go over here and make sure we're still rendering. Everything looks great. So I'm going to pop back over. Nothing to do with our CSS. We've got our utils all set up. I think we are ready to do some refactoring. What do you think? I'm ready. And I'm going to do my favorite one first. And let me just close up some things. So we're already done making files. Let's just close that out. And we don't really need the CSS file today. So I'm going to crunch our JavaScript one really in close to my avatar here, because this is where we're going to be having all of our fun. Our first one that we are refactoring is this concept of object assigned style. Naming things, it's just so hard, right? So I'm going to name it, let's see, assigned style, right? That's how clever I am. So the first thing that we want to do is we want our function to take some styles that are going to be applied to a node. We're going to say style. Or styles, styles. Who cares? Styles. And that is going to return a function. Then that function is going to expect a node. And then inside of here we can say node, or here we can say object.assign node.style to styles. Right? So in case you're wondering what that gibberish is, or if it looks like gibberish to you, it is long formed into something like this. We have assigned style, which is equal to a function. That function takes some styles coming in, and here we go. And then this function returns a function And that function, it's going to expect a node to come in. And when that return function gets called with the node, now we have access to, well, let's just look. We have access to styles and node because of the way that we've trapped some of our parameters coming in. And in here we can say object.assign node.style with styles. Right? So it's pretty much the same thing. We've just gotten rid of all the curly brackets and leveraged some nice ES6 auto return shorthand. And this is called currying, and it's also called higher order functions. We have a function that's returning a function, and we have some parameters being passed in back to back, and we're leveraging trapping those in order to get some tasks done, because this is kind of a way to do asynchronous work. We can set the styles right away, and then later we'll invoke that function that we got back with a node, and then it has all of the ingredients for the recipe it needs to do. So let's just look to see like how does that get used. So I'm going to take the styles out of this object, and we'll probably do this for the rest of them. And in here we're going to say assign style. We're going to pass in those styles. And if I hit save and I return, I expect to see the exact same thing that we had before, and we do. That's great. And that means I'm also going to take this and I'm going to put it into our first exported utility function called assign style. So we're going to export the constant function named assign style, which takes some styles, expects a node later, and then we'll object assign the styles of those node with the new styles that you passed in. And we can import that. We'll say import assign style from /utils.js. Given everything is healthy still, we'll come back here and check. It looks like we are good to go. So perfect. We are ready to rock and roll and kind of refactor the rest of them down here. So anytime we've got some style, I'm just going to go ahead and grab the styles off of it. Get rid of our nice little, that got us pretty far though for a while, and it was fun to read in the beginning, but now it's time to sort of like dry ourselves up. And in here we're going to say assign style, and we're going to pass in our styles. Great. Go back down here. We got another one. I'll grab the stupid pop-up text stuff. I don't care about all that crap on there. Thank you. Thank you. Go away. I don't even know why you showed up to begin with. I thought I turned you off. And here we're going to say assign style. Pass in our boom, boom, boom. And there, look, we got our little pop-ups are back. And our last instance of assigning styles. Assign style. Boom, and push that back up like that. Check our page, make sure everything is good. Everything is good, right? We've got underlines, it's all capped. Cool, we're still applying our styles. We are still in line with what we had. So that's our first refactor, assign style, right? That's fun. Higher order function, a little bit of currying. What else we got in here? We have a flat map, so we have direct descendants. This is something that we said multiple times. In fact, I can hit Command D and grab all the instances of that and just say direct descendants, because that's the name of the function I'm going to make. And that function, let's do it. Export const direct descendants. It's going to expect a node, and with that node, it will return node.children that it has spread into another array so that we can leverage that, right? We had node.children, direct descendants. So our last little point here is to import that direct descendants. I'll save everything with a nice little hotkey, pop back over here, refresh, make sure, and we are still cruising. So we just refactored direct descendants. Look at that, that's a piece of cake. What else we got here? We got filter, child node name. Okay, so we are filtering elements by attributes that they have, and we're passing it. So this is another one where we can use currying and higher order functions. Our goal with this one is, so we want filter, what do we want to call this? We want to call this, let's call this like something like by attribute, because the way that we want this to work is we want people to pass in two parameters. We want the attribute and we want the value that they're looking for. And with that, we can get, we'll return a function that expects a node, and with that node, we can say node dot, well, not dot, actually, we'll say node attribute is equal to val. Export const by attribute. So we'll pass in and we'll get back a function, and we call that function later with a node just like our other ones here, and we'll be able to evaluate whether or not that node has the keys and values that we're looking for. Perfect. And we'll take the name of that, which is by attribute. We'll make sure to import it at the top of our file here. Boop. Pop down to where it's used. So here's our first use case, which is node name h2. Notice the h2 is capitalized and ours is, we're just saying value. I'm going to say 2 uppercase because I'm kind of tired of typing these in uppercase or even having to remember it. So now I don't even have to remember it. So I'll get rid of what we have there and we'll say filter by attribute. And we're going to pass in node name as the key we're looking for, and the value was h2. So another one of those ones where we're calling it immediately. So notice that this will be immediately executed. These values will get passed in. A new function comes back for filter to execute on each iteration. So just to remind you that that's what's going on here. We have another one here, which is node name p. We get another one, which is node name p down here as well. Kind of setting ourselves up for some nice future easier use cases here. I'm going to save because I think we are done with that, and pop back over here and refresh. I'm going to check the console. I'm getting a little paranoid, like why are we doing so well here? Here's our console. We have no errors. We have, this little stupid violation from browser sync, but I'm not really about that. Okay, well, let's keep on keeping on. We've got assign style, direct descendants by attribute. I think we have just first child and last child was our last one that we're doing here, right? So we have last child, which does not have a next element, which means it's the last. And are we checking that anywhere else? No, we are getting the, oh no, see that's parent children. Filter, oh, we could filter this one. So this is by attribute node name p. Cool, so we almost missed one. All that code looks great. So let's do our first child and last child functions. I think we can do this without even really looking there. So we'll say export const last child is a function that's going to take a node and it's going to return whether or not that node, next element sibling. So if it's the last child, it should not have a next element. Okay, that's correct. So now we'll also go do one for first child while we're here, because the pattern's so easy. We got previous element sibling, right? So if you don't have any previous children next to you, previous element, then you must be the first child in that set. And if you don't have a next one, you must be the last child. Great. Pop into here. Let's import those. Excellent. And let's use them. So these are interesting because these are not higher order functions. So these will just get invoked straight. And the way that we want those to work is here we got here, filtered by last child. Let's just look at our little selector here that we've written, because now we're going to say last child. So this function will get called with a node that's coming from each iteration on this filter function. I'll hit save, and we should be good. We should be good. It looks good. Last child for life. Let's close this. Excellent. That, I believe, concludes our refactor. So let's just check out what we have now. We have experiments that are going for each. We're assigning some style, so that's just a nice, easy one. We're flat mapping the direct descendants back up, then we're filtering each one of those descendants based on whether or not they're in H2 or not. Then we're giving them some styles. Look at that. That's exactly what's happening here. Nice little succinct way that CSS does it. And we have this crazier one, which we didn't really refactor a whole lot, but we did do a little bit of work in here. This particular use case, I'm trying to determine whether or not this is unique or reusable. I think we have reusable elements in here, so we might want to do a refactor and figure out some sort of composition strategy, or even just augment this whole chain, this triple chain, into one call. I don't know. That'd be something I'd have to think about. Then we have our last map, or our last child one here. We're flat mapping direct descendants. We're filtering by the node name and the paragraph. Then we're filtering by the last child, and we're assigning the style, and we are done. That was cool. And here's our refactored code. These would be pretty easy to test. They're pure functions. They don't reach out anywhere. They get passed in all the parameters that they need. And some of them are really cool because they actually behave like this. Assign style. We pass in like color, hot pink. Yeah. And then we're going to pass in a node. That's essentially what's happening in the usage in the chain, except the chain doesn't show you this part. it's stashing the return of this into memory, at which point it will execute that with the value coming from the chain. So anyway, I hope that was mildly confusing or was kind of fun and brain-blowing, because you could just go watch FunFunFunction MPJ talk about higher order functions and currying. He has some phenomenal videos to help you ramp up into that stuff. So I think we are done, and I said that there was like a learning moment that I had from this whole thing, and for me it was that I realized that a CSS selector and the rules and the styles inside of the block that follow it act a lot like a higher order function. Because if you think about it, the styles, just like as we passed them in, those are static. Those are known ahead of time. We can stash those, and we don't need to go fetch those and retrieve them and redefine those and do anything with them any more than they already are. They're there. We'll take them, stash them into a function, and await later for a node to come along that wants those styles. And so as the browser finds those nodes, it can stamp them. It helped me sort of understand that there is definitely a multi-phase approach that's happening here. There's a lot more work under the hood in the CSS compiler and the way that it searches and queries and applies styles, that it's a lot more complex than it feels to author. And I really liked that. I liked that we were able to sort of dry out our code and abstract our functions and simultaneously find something intricate and a little bit intimate about CSS, at least the way that I see it right now. So thanks for watching our refactor. We're going to be using these same refactored functions in lesson number 4, where we talk about recursion. We talk about recursion. We talk about recursion. We talk about recursion. Ah!